Good morning, Silvia. How are you doing today? It's snowing again. We keep this up and we're going to be like the Donner Party and get caught in the pass before we get to where we're going. Today we're in Elko, Nevada. It's 31 degrees and snowing. We're going to Carson City, which is just south of Lake Tahoe. We'll spend a couple of days there and go visit the Donner State Park tomorrow. It's day 12 of our adventure, so we're more than halfway through a trip. Time to get on the road. Let's go. I'm at the California Trail Interpretive Center. And like a lot of things, this time of year it's not open. But I wanted to show you this. I guess this is supposed to be a reproduction of a typical wagon. And the wagon looks pretty close. And there's two yoke of oxen. The only thing I see is oxen used a chain, not a tongue. And this wagon has a tongue, so it would have been pulled by mules. And why oxen used a chain, I don't know. I'll need to research that. I've also read that the box was actually waterproofed so that the wagon could be floated across streams. All right, there's a number of markers, of course, just down the road here. I want to go look at those. No cowboy hat today. It's still snowing here just west of Elko, Nevada. And according to the marker I just read, just over this fence is the original California Trail. Now, I think I see some swales. Obviously no ruts after all this time, but I see some swales over there. And I'll take it as true. The California Trail went right through here. This is the end of the Hastings Cutoff. Let me show you on a map. This is actually just the end of the cutoff. It actually started way over in Fort Bridger off the map over here. But you see it came over, and had they known, they should have cut right and come up and joined the California Trail there. But no, they went way down south around this mountain range and came back and joined the California Trail here. Today, I'm going to follow the trail all the way into Carson City. There's a marker here that says right over there is where the Hastings Cutoff rejoined the main California Trail. And Lansford Hastings was an early entrepreneur who thought he had found a shorter route to California, claiming his cutoff would save immigrants 400 miles and several days of travel. He even promoted it in a guide that he published. And although he hadn't actually traveled the route, he convinced a bunch of 1846 immigrants to follow him. So Hastings and his initial group ran into trouble right away. The mountains east of Salt Lake City were a horrible challenge. And then they had to endure 80 miles across the desert around Salt Lake with no water. And then they had the high desert of eastern Nevada and a long detour around Ruby Mountains. And then they had to travel through South Fork Canyon, making 14 crossings of the river before they could rejoin the California Trail. The Donner Reed party had been convinced at Fort Bridger to follow the shortcut, but they were traveling 8 days behind Hastings and his party. After much travail and loss of livestock, furniture, and wagons on the salt flats, they rejoined the California Trail and found that they had added 125 miles to their journey and 3 additional weeks of travel. They were just a few days short of reaching the pass and getting over the Sierra Nevadas when a snowstorm caught them and they were stuck. Their tragedy largely put an end to travel on the Hastings Cutoff, unloading the wagon to make them lighter so the oxen could pull across the desert. And here's a good map of the entire trail. Again, Silvia and I started way over here, Kansas, Nebraska, Fort Laramie, Wyoming, down to Fort Bridger, and then we picked up the California Trail, Mormon Trail into Salt Lake City, and that came up around the north side of the lake down to Elko, and today we'll be in Carson City. Now we're on a section of the trail that follows the Humboldt River. And remember, they always followed rivers. So when the wagons reached this point, they had been on the trail for 1,600 miles, had 400 more miles to go, and they still had the 40-mile desert and the climb over the Sierra Nevadas before they could get to California. Here's a pretty neat image. No death or cholera depicted here, just an evening at the end of the day, I guess. This is Carlin Canyon. And the immigrants had to come down around the river, always following the river. And the train came through here in 1868, went down around the river just like you see here, until 1903 when the tunnels were built through the mountain. And so if the train came through here, the telegraph came through here. I'm assuming the Pony Express also. I don't know. It's very quiet now. No one comes through here. Everyone blows by on the freeway. So that's the Humboldt River. And for the past 10 days or so, the California immigrants have been following the river. Pretty easy travel. But now, down through there is the Palisades Canyon, and wagons can't get through there. So they had to leave the river. They probably traveled where you see the dirt road going up over the ridge over there. By this point, they had completed 3/4 of their journey, but the hardest part was still to come, the Sierra Nevadas. This is another stop along the Humboldt River. First, I will give you a view of the scenery. The wind's been howling today. It's in the 40s, but it's cold because of the wind chill. Beautiful scenery though. So apparently a lot of animals and livestock died along this stretch of the trail because of the alkali water, and they would get mired in the marshes and the sloughs trying to get to the water. There's a guidebook you can get that I did not, that lists all these T-posts. This is railroad steel, and I've seen quite a few of these, and I've stopped and looked at a few of them, and they usually have some type of a little plaque or something. This one says California Trail Soup du jour. The Humboldt is a burying ground for horses and oxen. The river is nothing but animal broth seasoned with alkali and salt. July 28th, 1850. They claim that there are swales through here, and I can see things that look like swales. I don't know, here's one right here, and seems to be one parallel to it through there. This is private land. On the road again. I'm at another T-rail marker near Lovelock, Nevada, and it's titled Approaching Big Meadows. Just a few miles from here, I guess there was a mountain meadow that was almost like an oasis. Lots of fresh grass, they even cut hay. Approaching Big Meadows, starving livestock and exhausted travelers lifted their heads and picked up their feet, for they knew that relief lay just ahead. And this marker here is T-rail marker. If you can't read it, it says nearing Big Meadows, and a quote from a fellow: "There was not a spear of grass to be found. Willow was all our cattle had. In 4 or 5 miles we came to the great meadow." Brian McKinstry, August 26, 1850. I'm at the courthouse of Pershing County, and it talks about the Big Meadows. Travelers named this valley the Big Meadows and stopped for water and grass before continuing south across the dreaded 40-mile desert, the most difficult lap on the trail to California. I'm at the Humboldt Sink. It's where the Humboldt River just empties into a basin and just fades away. The immigrants have been following the Humboldt River for many, many days across Nevada, most of the way across Nevada. And here it ends. My next stop is the 40-mile desert. So that makes sense. The river they had been following for so long ends here. And so it makes sense that soon they will hit what they refer to as the 40-mile desert. Way back in January, when I was planning this trip, I meant to have a bunch of pre-recorded factoids about different things about the trail. but I never had time to do it. You would think a guy that's been retired for a couple of years could find the time to do that. But one last thing I want to say about the immigrants on the trail before I forget it is that the immigrants were not poor people. It took a lot of money to first get to independence. You know, you had to take stage or a steamboat. I assume there's a stagecoach to Independence. I don't know. So then you had to buy all your provisions in Independence, your wagon, your oxen or mules, all your provisions, get yourself across the country, tools. You know, and none of that stuff came at a discount. Everyone wanted it, so you're paying premium prices. You had to buy enough food to feed your family for the 5 to 6 months that it took to get across the country. And then you got there in the autumn and too late to put in crops. So what did you do? I really don't know. I haven't read much about that. How did you get through the winter? And it was in that following spring before you could plant crops and really get established. I don't know what they did once they got there. I read that it took over $1,000 to get provision, and I read an article that equated that to 40 to 50 grand in today's money. But imagine no work. Now a lot of those people were self-sufficient. They didn't work a job like we do. Like I said, they were not poor. I would think that most of them had sold the family farm and had money from the sale of their land, and they knew that in Oregon they could get land for free. If you were single, I would think that some people hired on with a wagon to help herd their livestock or to lead the oxen or help the family in some way. And I've read articles about that, different families that had hired help. But if you were a family and dirt poor, you weren't on the Oregon Trail. You had to have resources to buy the stuff to travel the Oregon Trail. Right over there is the 40-mile desert. And I just learned something about the 40-mile desert that I did not know. It's the single most dreaded section of the California Trail between Independence, Missouri and here. And if possible, they traveled during the night to avoid the great heat during the day. It's a barren stretch of waterless alkali wasteland. Regardless of its horrors, it became the accepted route. The trail splits 3 miles southeast of here into the two main trails to California, the Carlin River and the Truckee River routes. I'm going to take the Carlin River route because I'm staying in Carson City tonight. Each route had its advantages and disadvantages, but both of them included a 40-mile long stretch before water could be reached. This is the part that really hits your heart. Starvation for men and animals stalked every mile. A survey made in 1850 showed these appalling statistics. 1,061 dead mules, almost 5,000 horses, 3,750 cattle, and 953 graves in this 40-mile stretch. The then value of personal property loss was set at $1 million. Title of the marker is Traveling Through Hell. Wow. The most dreaded section of the entire trail. I am right here, and I'm going to take the Carson route because I'm staying in Carson City tonight. And then tomorrow we are going to go to Donner State Park, which is right over in here, and I'm just going to spend a whole day around Lake Tahoe, and then I'm headed home. But Austin, Texas, I'm going to spend a night in a castle in the desert, so look for that video. Right over there is the Truckee River, and I'm on the Truckee route instead of the Carson route because I told my GPS to take me to Motel 6 in Carson City, and it brought me along the Truckee route. I think because of the freeway, it's quicker to just take the freeway. Immigrants and animals staggered to the Truckee, half dead and crazed with thirst, about 3 miles east of here near the point where I-80 crosses the river. So I've come about 3 miles beyond where they first reached the river. The clear, cold water flowing from the Sierra Nevada to the east was a welcome change from the alkali-tainted water the travelers have been forced to drink for several hundred miles. This portion of the California Trail along the Truckee River represents a transitional area for the immigrants, the end of relentless dust and heat, but the beginning of the last great challenge, crossing the Sierra Nevada. Going up the Truckee River Canyon was not an easy task. They had to cross the river more than 30 times along a rough route with steep banks and fast water before they reached the Meadows near present-day Reno. Those who opted for the Carlin River route at the beginning of the 40-mile desert had an easier time for wagons, with only a few crossings of the Carlin River in gentler terrain. As the years went by, the Carson City route became the favored route for the final push into California.